Hi, Chuck. Welcome. So, as you know, we have chosen you and your book to discuss for the very first Turning Pages Book Review Club. Tell me, first of all, what made you write this book?
I'm writing this book because I built this whole Friends of Chuck world based on relationships and people. And in life, you shouldn't hoard things, you should share things. And this was the best way to do that, Yo-Yo. Put it in a book, put it in a format that's easy to read. And I've heard people say that over and over again now. And that you can immediately apply and move the needle in your life, your career, your relationships, your success, everything that you do in life. That's what motivated me to do it.
Look, I mean, writing a book isn't easy at all. So tell me, were there any points where you thought, oh my goodness, this is much harder than I thought it was going to be? And how did that feel?
So much brain power is required. And into this hat, there's only so much brain power. And it's true. A book is a very difficult task. You have to be committed. And it took me a long time to put all the pieces together to make it meaningful and successful and affordable, right? So people could actually make at less than a $20 investment that they could turn into $2 million, right? If you will, for lack of a better analogy. You can fold it up and carry it in your pocket, and it helps you see the future. It's a tool. I want to thank everybody who helped me with it. A lot of people wrote a lot of nice things on here, right, as part of this. But it is a tool. It was a tool designed to use using KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And that's exactly what I did. Everybody can utilize it, not only in the security field, but law enforcement, military, all people who are in the relationships business, right?
I mean, mine is never very far away from me. Thank you for sending it. Thank you also for inscribing it, which I absolutely adore.
So thank you for doing this. I'm excited to see what everybody has to say.
Well, what a great segue. Let's see what everyone had to say. Thank you so much, Chuck. Thanks for letting us review your book.
Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the ASIS International Physical Security Book Review. This is our very first podcast in this series, and we will feature a review of several physical security books published in our community by colleagues in our community. So let's hope this helps you wherever you are in your security career. I'd like to think that this will inspire other budding authors and thought leaders and global influencers to have their own books published. Our very first book being reviewed today is Yes, Sir, written by our very own #1 global security influencer, Chuck Andrews, CPP. So everybody on our panel received a copy of the book, and they've had plenty of time to read it, and they all volunteered to be on this panel today. Let's begin by introducing those fellows who chose this book to review, and they're going to tell you, first of all, just a little bit about themselves. Starting off with Farah.
So, hi, I am Farah Bennis, and I am coming to you from sunny London today. I'm the Managing Director of FFA Security Group. I oversee and drive the operations of the company. My career has taken me across Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, although I am now fully UK-based. I'm an avid supporter of seeing more women lead within the security industry. And my free time is spent facilitating workshops with young people on topics such as harassment, consent, and safety. I can regularly be found reading a book, creating art, or roaming London with my dog, Lou. I think the beauty of the security industry lies in its people, dedicated professionals, always ready to lend a hand, share knowledge, and contribute to the collective growth of our community. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today and the chance to talk more about this book.
Thank you, Farah. And I do believe your dog sneezed in the background there. You did. You did so well keeping a straight face. Thank you so much. Well done. Good skills. Okay, just introducing my next guest. And this next guest is Mike Anderson.
Hello, my name is Mike Anderson. I'm a CP and a PSP coming from Colorado, and I'm the chair of the ASIS physical security community. That's my volunteer position with ASIS. For work, I'm a senior enterprise PM with Unlimited Technology. We're a security integration company. We help small, large enterprise companies with their physical security installations, maintenance. I've been an ASIS member for nearly 15 years. It's been an incredible experience. I've met some wonderful people that have become lifelong friends that I get to see either on a monthly basis on virtual community calls or in person every year at GSX. And that network has really helped me evolve my career over time. It's one of the best things that I've ever done was join not only ASIS and be a part of a community and even the local chapters. So I'm really excited to talk about this book because it's really important topic for either younger or mid-level security managers to have this knowledge and experience.
Thank you, Mike. That's smashing. And hello, Colorado. So let's go on to our next guest, who's a little closer to me. He's here in the UK. He is Adrian. Now I've said the English version of his name. Adrian will tell you how to really say his name. Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you, Yolanda. I can throw a Afrikaans accent. So, Adrian Bosch, that's how you properly say it. I am in sunny Oxford in Kent, in the Garden province of the UK at the moment. I'm a security consultant for global engineering firm Barrow Appelt. We specialize, apart from the engineering consultancy, as a team, we specialize in large security project advice internationally. In my spare time, I'm a dad first, so I have 3 children that take 90% of my free time, which it should. But I also enjoy mentoring some of the older children in our community. I'm an avid airsoft player and fisherman, and I travel about an hour to work and back. So I get an hour every day to read on the train. So I enjoy keeping up with gaining new knowledge and reading new information every day, which is an absolute pleasure. I've been a ASIS member for a couple of years. I think over, 15 years now as well. The ASIS has been a big catalyst in my personal career. I think we'll probably talk a little bit more about it during the session, but that community of people and that support has been a big influence in my personal career to bring me where I am today.
I think it's fair to say that the fish are slightly smaller here in the UK as they were in South Africa, right?
Puny.
Okay. Thank you so much and welcome. And I'm going to introduce our next guest is also across the pond. Welcome, Richard.
Well, good day, everyone. Rich Whittip, as they say in Texas. Hi, y'all. I'm currently based in Indiana. I am the founder and president of the Whittip Group, LLC, an enterprise security risk consultancy focused on supply chain security, crisis management, business continuity, brand protection, and food defense, because I have a lot of experience in the food defense area based upon my previous employment with Reckitt, most recently the group head of security for Reckitt, a fast-moving consumer goods company based in the UK. I've been with ASIS for over 22 years. I have 22 years of security experience and then a plethora of law enforcement experience worldwide. To echo everyone else's comments, one of my highlights in my career was being the ASIS president. And what a wonderful opportunity to see the networking, the education, the standards development, all the things that go on worldwide. And I just have always been totally impressed by the volunteer efforts and the staff as well. It's quite a good experience. And this book is, I think, epitomizes this whole thing about what's good about a good network and a good organization. And looking forward to talking about her further. In my spare time, I play musical instruments. I love to bike. And I have several grandkids that I like to play around with. And I'm also very interested in book reading. I'm a voracious reader. So I'm in the right group of people here to talk about books.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. And our very last guest, who is actually the only one south of the equator as we speak, is Ari Yassiani. Welcome, Ari.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. And yes, obviously, because of my accent, it is inevitable to realize where I'm from. I'm a consultant at Gloher Group, which is a security management consultancy, which is a lot of fun because we work with a lot of different clients in South America and especially in Argentina. We're always improving their processes and their technologies, and we always test everything. We not only doing penetration testing, physical penetration testing, but also challenging people on a daily basis through micro simulations. And that is always a lot of fun, and it's also very productive. And personally, like Farah, I'm a big bookworm, so much so that I started editing my own books here in South America with several authors from Peru and Chile and other countries, I'm really excited to participate in the podcast and do something that has to do both with security and with books.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. Okay, so we're going to kick off. I think I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to start off with page 3. It's a really nice place to start. And I'm going to come to Adrian for this first response. Chuck talks about how his stepfather and his father were great role models in his life, but his stepfather said to him, he said, and I quote, taught me the importance of not only knowing the right people, but taking the time to truly know them. And there's no doubt about it, when you become a friend of Chuck's, you certainly feel that you're getting to know the person and he takes the time getting to know you. Adrian, how important do you think this is for security professionals?
I think that a big theme of the book actually, or the main theme for me from the book was actually mentoring. I think reading Chuck's life story, in a sense, it's clear that mentors have played a significant role in his career. I think he was quite blessed in having a stepfather and a father that were maybe different in a sense, but really bought into his life. I think, and similarly, my parents were divorced when I was quite young, but I think it really speaks to the importance of having that, having guidance, being challenged. Life is ultimately an adventure, and especially men seek adventure, and when you have all that energy and ideas, you need that guidance to actually take that energy and go in the correct avenue. So very important. I think if there was a key thing from the entire book for me, it's the value of mentorship.
Yeah, and in fact, Chuck talks a lot about relationships because relationships, Richard, it represents, doesn't it, the R in the name title of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I've actually had this conversation with Chuck and others. Relationships are everything, right? And I think one of the things that comes out in this book is that his discussion about getting to know someone is that empathy that you need to have in your relationships and building those relationships and working towards them. On that part of the book where he talks about relationships, he brings that out to say, this is work. And he's absolutely right. Just meeting someone and then not fostering that relationship moving forward is a missed opportunity. You never know what that opportunity might be otherwise. Yeah, absolutely critical for that. People come into your life sometimes for a season, sometimes they come into your life for a reason. And I've always said that if they come into your life for a season, try to keep it for a reason. Foster that and work with that because down the road, it'll pay you dividends immensely. So I'm glad he mentioned that. You're absolutely right. Having an opportunity to get to know someone and taking the time, it's more than just a very superficial conversation. You need to have a real conversation about how are you doing? How do you do that? And he talks about that and about how security professionals sometimes, interestingly enough, don't do that often enough. And so I'm glad he called that out.
Thank you, Richard. Farah, coming to you now. I mean, relationships are important, but it was only when I really read Chuck's book that I realized how important, because we meet, just as Richard said, people coming in and out of our lives, but there's something more, isn't there, about really connecting with people? And there's great tools for us to do that now.
It's so important. I think one thing about this book is that it really does just emphasize that importance of relationships, both within and outside of the security community. there's a lot of insight into how forging strong relationships will enhance our professional lives and improve the overall effectiveness of our operations. I thought he really brilliantly highlighted that the most successful security professionals aren't just those with technical expertise, but also the ones who can build and nurture relationships across various sectors. So, yeah, I think that's sort of invaluable for anyone who's really looking to move into leadership roles in security and beyond.
Thank you, Sarah. Mike, let's come to you. What did you learn about relationships when you read Yes, Sir?
I think Rich, he hit the word that I really focused on, which was empathy. And the idea of listening with empathy is something that didn't really come naturally to me early in my career. And I think over time, I've learned that it's the key to having a great relationship is not to listen for your chance to speak, but to actually put yourself in that person's shoes and listen to where are they coming from and how did they come to that decision. And that I've done a lot of mentoring with my former employer, mentoring military veterans and folks that are transitioning into the corporate security world. And I think if I listen with empathy and I actually listen to what they're saying about their story and where they're going, I learn more most of the time than they do, right? I'm listening to what stresses they have and what's their interpretation of this industry and how do they see it. And then that helps me kind of focus my efforts or where I go next. But, that idea of not just listening for that sliver of time when now it's your turn to talk, I try to apply that in my entire life because sometimes I can be the one that could step on someone's story or cut you off. And I try to be really careful to not do that and actually engage with what they said. And that builds a deeper relationship because that person then comes back to you as someone that they trust and someone that they know that they can have this open conversation with. You're going to listen and then provide feedback if they want it, or just shake your head and say, well, that's something. And whatever that person needs, you're there to do it.
Thank you, Mike. So let's go to Ari Yassiani then. Ari, on page 5, Chuck basically says, he's got this phrase about the saying that you gather more bees with honey certainly applies to law enforcement and security as well. I'm adding the and security as well. He says, I learned that even when someone was being a total asshole, you could almost always win them over if you killed them with kindness. It's another element of his relationship methodology, isn't it?
Yes, that's one of my favorite quotes from the book. I actually have it on my notepad. And yes, it's absolutely true. And he also mentions that there are some exceptions to that. But in general, I think even the most complicated person to work with, to talk with, deserves a chance to be listened to. And also, it's it's a skill, it's a habit that you have to build, communication and listening. A lot of people think it's not that important. And maybe because they have a technical job or something similar, it's a detail. And it's not a detail. It's actually, it can be at times the core of your work and the enabler of everything you do. You have to communicate it. So if you can communicate with empathy, that's even better.
In fact, I learned talking to Chuck as well as reading the book that whenever he goes anywhere, he obviously makes a point of touching base and contacting that person he's met from a networking event within, I think, 48 hours of meeting them. And he said, when you do that, when you get in contact with them 48 hours later, you're making them feel important to you. You're basically saying, I've got here, listen, a load of business cards of people that I really must contact. And I haven't. In knowing Chuck's mantra and methodology reminds me that I should have got in touch with them a lot sooner. But look, let's circle back again. On page 24, Chuck talks about his career taking off and leaving the police. It seems that everywhere he's seen an opportunity to get involved with something, move forward, meet new people and network. Starting off with you, Richard, take me through how Chuck's literally exploited every opportunity.
That's a great question. And I think that what comes out in this book is the strategy. So Chuck is one of these kind of people, and I think more of us need to probably try to mirror this when we can, is to have a plan. You need to forecast your own life and have a strategy for your own life, whether it's your personal life or your professional life. Certainly in the professional world, what you want to do is you want to decide what it is, where you're going, whether it's a profession or it's a company or it's an element within your profession or an element within your company. All of these things require a little bit of strategy and actually a lot of strategy in many cases. And in order to do it correctly, you need to think it through. And he brings us out to say, listen, write down what it is you want to do. Write down and then think about who it is can help me get there. If I don't know that person, how do I get to know that person? And this, obviously, this is full circle with relationships, because by fostering relationships, you never know when someone's going to be able to help you down the road, whether it be with a job or even a personal issue or a professional issue and learning more, gravitating towards an area. So I think he really emphasizes the fact that generally security people are good about developing strategy in the business, but not necessarily with themselves. And I love that comment, because when that was an aha moment for me, I even spoke out loud when I read it. I said, no kidding. You're absolutely right. And I get that. So I want to give him kudos for that little tip of the hat, because that is so prescient, and more of us need to learn and grow from that.
Yeah, and I think while we come to Adrian, Richard, it's fair to say that I was reading that section. We all know about strategy. We're security professionals. We design strategy for our clients and our employers. But I found myself thinking, do I have a strategy? What's my strategy? And it was just a very simple prompt. Adrian, what did you pick up really from Chuck's view on strategy?
But strategy starts with intent. So one of the most important things is understanding where you want to end up. I think it was clear from Chuck, and maybe it's something that I think Clint influenced him in his life. For one, and also his stepdad, is what is the intent? What are you trying to achieve? And it really starts there. I think what does hit me, looking at it from an international perspective, is that internationally you don't necessarily have events. It's not that simple. I think in the States, for one, definitely you have GSX and other IC West. So there's very large events happening in the UK. You've got Birmingham, but that's not the case internationally. So what the challenge thing becomes is that it's the same intent, but you might need to approach it slightly different for yourself. And I think maybe to come back to what we discussed just a little bit earlier is that every single contact you make is important. You might meet someone that's now quite young in his career or early in his career, or a salesperson at an event. That doesn't say anything. Don't underestimate that person's ability to grow and learn and become a valued ally in future, not even far future. Even everyone has got something to give. And I think what you need to do, if you have read Chuck's book, is this is how he's done it. Understand what the intent is, and then you need to go and create that strategy for yourself. And I think it's more at the end of the book.
Yep, absolutely. Yari, coming to you now, tell me what you picked up from Chuck's book around strategy.
I think I liked the most was that he separated strategies that you need to take into account, like a social media strategy or a job seeking strategy. And he simplified them in such a way that maybe when you read a book on strategic management or something similar, maybe you won't find steps that are so clear as they are here. And I think he's great at at breaking down projects into small tasks. And yes, I wish this kind of book existed when I was like 10 years ago, when I was just starting my career, so that I could approach my career in a more strategic manner. Yes.
Yeah. And it's only 100 pages, but it's 100 pages of a lifetime's experience
Of
in
course.
in a beautiful way that you don't have to read 1,000 pages and listen to boring stories. It literally, every single page has a punch to it. Coming to you now, Sarah, let's talk, Sarah, around what you picked up around strategy and why it's so relatable, certainly to people earlier on in their careers.
So strategy represents to me sort of this deliberate planning and foresight that is required in dealing with security scenarios. And that's something I'm sure we all do work wise. So it really makes sense to me to then apply that to our careers as well. It's about adaptability and the ability to navigate changes in the landscape, whether they're threats or opportunities. And a good strategy always considers sort of the human element, because the goal is not just to create an effective plan, but also to build trust. So I think approaching relationships with strategy as well. At a certain point of the book, he said how he keeps a database of notes on everyone he meets. And that was really helpful to me as someone who forgets more than I remember. So this idea of sort of being very much more intentional about every aspect of your career, I think for young people who are just starting out their careers, it's really useful.
So, Farah, if you think to your point around remembering names, with the Beyonce song, it's not to say my name, it's say your name.
Exactly. Absolutely. I'm one of those where in a conversation, when I first meet someone, I will repeat people's names over and over again. And I'm sure people get really annoyed with it, but I have to do it. Otherwise it's gone.
Mike, coming to you, strategy. What did you pick up personally from Chuck's book around strategy?
Well, I think it's that the outcome. So what is the desired end state of your strategy? And someone spoke about that just a few minutes ago. And that was big for me because of his mantra, the dream big, have fun and get things done. And that dream big part, I think, is something that not everyone does. And I would put myself into that group as well, of having the big enough dream that you're going to build a strategy around. And from what I got from the book from him, what I noticed in his entire career, even him starting out as a young student that wanted to become a police officer, it was taking big risks and having a growth mindset. And that's something I've focused on a lot the last 8 years, learning about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And it really shows that Chuck, throughout his entire career, has had a growth mindset. He was willing to dream big and then take risks and try something new. And some examples from his career was going to study abroad in different police forces and learn how they did it. And that's not something that I would have expected from Chuck, a police officer from Texas, right? And that showed him that there's other ways of policing, there's community engagement. So that idea of seeing what the end state is and then understanding that you're probably going to have to take some big risks. Maybe it's a different job or a different industry to get there, and that you trust yourself enough and your network and your relationships to take that risk, and that it's going to work out. And if it doesn't, you're going to learn from it and you'll start again. So that's what I got. It really hit me hard.
Smashing. Over to you now, Richard. The I in S.I.R stands for intelligence, doesn't it? Now, listen, this isn't just about intelligence. We know security deals with intelligence all the time. This has a very different meaning. What did you pick up from this?
I liked a lot of the things he talked about in the intelligence section. It's what we say as security professionals especially to our direct reports, is that you have to know the business cold, right? You can't help the business if you don't know the business, because if you know the business, then as effectively as you should, then you know what the risks are and you can plan accordingly, et cetera. But he also talks about in this book, and it's really a very good shout out, a very good idea that people, especially that are just beginning a career or maybe mid-level, need to remind themselves, and that is to stay engaged. You have to stay engaged and look at journals, security journals, and it gives some good examples of some really good resources. Attend webcasts or podcasts whenever you can, because there's a lot of things that are evolving and developing. You can't help yourself. You can't help your company necessarily if you don't know what's really going on in the world around you. And oftentimes in almost any job, especially in the security profession, it's problematical because you can get so consumed with what you're doing every day that you kind of have blinders on for a while. And that's the value, again, about relationships and reaching out and knowing people and asking for help and insight into what's going on. I did that most of my career. Mike, for example, has a PSP background. I do not have a strong physical security background. So whenever I was challenged with that, I would reach out to people within my network. That's the intelligence I need to say, hey, what's going on? What do I need to be aware of? And those are really important things. So really good shout out and call out about that. And I'm glad he did that. Very good
Yeah.
insights.
And to your point, Richard, around our ASIS network, I wanted to brief up on some travel security that was a little bit more current, modern. And I just put a note on ASIS Connects. And I just said, hey, is anybody here really specializing in international travel safety, travel security? And the overwhelming response I had, like Zoom meetings at the time with them, I was able to look at legislation and international standards. And what an amazing community. Like, you're absolutely right. There's everything you there. What a good little plug for ASIS membership.
Yeah, it is. But it's good. But I'm glad you said that, Yo-Yo, because the thing is that ASIS Connects is a tremendous opportunity. I belong to several other organizations, and I don't see that network as robust as it is within ASIS. And yeah, you throw a question out, in general, you're going to get quite a few answers back. And that's, again, another one of those things that you should probably check at least once a week, right? Check in on what's going on in your Connects communities.
Yes, thank you very much, Richard. Okay, so coming over to Adrian, and we're on the subject of intelligence. Adrian, Chuck says it in his book. He said, Intel also means the information you pass on to others. Now, early on in careers, sometimes I know that I did get quite overwhelmed by things that I knew, and maybe I wasn't as conscientious about what I was passing on to others. That's a huge learning thing, isn't it? Not something that everyone learns in their careers unless they've made a mistake.
Yeah, look, Yolanda, I think the most important thing about intelligence is that it's actionable. It's actionable data. And what relationships give you, and I think what Chuck refers to, is that when you have that relationship with a person and you know the person, then the information that you get from that person is, to an extent, is trustworthy. Which, and the moment it's actionable, it actually becomes monetized in a sense, or it becomes, you can actually do something. I think Colin Powell has got a very good rule, the 40-70 rule, that 40% of information is not enough, but 70 is too much. And when you have in that relationship, it's not just about asking normal questions, but it's knowing that the information that you're getting, you can trust where it's coming from, in a sense. I think also that's where ASI is with standards. If I ask another CPP person a specific question around standards, I know where they're coming from. I know their background. So I think that's one of the values. But again, it's only intelligence when you can do something with it.
And certainly, Ari, people remember, don't they, when you give them, or if you give them bad intel, it's just a big no-no in this business, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's also super important to connect the three aspects of the book, because Chuck also highlights the importance of building relationships through Intel, and then also getting Intel out of relationships. And this is something that took me a lot to learn personally, because it's not something that comes naturally to me. It's a skill that I had to decide to learn and practice and maintain. And now I can say I have someone basically in any country I can think of, and they will provide me mostly with good intel, and they can do the same with me. I think that's also a good sign that people like working with you or your intel, because they will ask for it, even if you're not particularly working on a project together, or you're not bounded by a contract, but people still choose you for your intel or your collaboration.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ari. Farah, coming over to you. I mean, in the UK, you and I, we work quite a lot together in our women's community along with security. And that's important, isn't it? Because the intelligence, the trust that we have, when you want to ask someone to help you, that help is unconditionally there. Those relationships become very solid. How important is that?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think Chuck does a really remarkable job of sort of highlighting how the concept of intelligence extends beyond our professional world and into our sort of personal relationships. And also, like, he really highlights well the importance of being informed and prepared, not only for security challenges, but in planning and navigating relationships and career paths as well. I liked how he really advocated for keeping ourselves sort of up to date on industry trends as well, networking with other professionals, and continually seeking learning opportunities. So I feel like all of these actions together kind of end up serving as our own personal intelligence agency as well, sort of arming us with knowledge and foresight. And I think that allows us to be strategic about both our relationships and our careers, identifying opportunities for growth and just being prepared to see things when they arise. He underscored sort of the fact that a successful career really doesn't happen by accident. It's a result of deliberate, informed, and strategic planning. And I think like that same preparedness and forward thinking that we apply to our work in security should also be applied to managing our career trajectory as well. So that I said before. But yeah, it's a strong reminder that sort of intelligence is sort of a crucial resource in all aspects of our professional life.
Thank you, Farah. Mike, coming to you. Look, this intelligence community doesn't just extend to Chuck Network. It's now his Friends of Chuck Network. Personally,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Chuck, not a friend of Chuck. But this Friends of Chuck Network and how he's used that intelligence and how he's able to connect people. I mean, that's very clever. I don't know anyone else that's done that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's something that connected with me because I'm very much a database spreadsheet type of person. And I think we've talked about this in the past is one thing that I've done is download my entire LinkedIn network. And you can do that with one click. And then I built a spreadsheet. And that intelligence that you get from, you've got all these people in your network, but really what good is that? And I think once you start categorizing that information and your connections, adding metadata or tags or things that help you kind of pull from that in the future has been super helpful. And I know that's what he talks about, creating his own spreadsheet, a database. And that's kind of what became Friends of Chuck. But knowing, if I have a question about aviation security, I know I've got a few folks in my network that do that. Oh, here's this person that's a security director for NetJets, that type of thing. And having that information kind of readily available is key. And like as a spreadsheet geek, it was great to see him write that in the book about how you can't just have a conversation with someone. And yes, you're going to pick up a few tidbits of information. You're going to hear where they work, where they're from, things they've done in the past. But you really have to write that down, follow up, then put them into a database so that, hey, I have this connection that I can go back to if I need to in the future, or just set some sort of reminder for you to always follow with that person, whether it's every other month, every few months, once a year, so that you can continue to have that relationship fresh and that intelligence flow coming to you, right? And the last thing is just making sure the intel you give people, what information you're passing along, it has to be relevant and it can't be wrong, because you said this, once you give bad intelligence, people stop coming to you, right? So we all have those folks in our network that you listen to, you talk to, but maybe you take what they say with a grain of salt and maybe you're going to go confirm it from a couple other sources, right? So being that person that is reliable and someone that people are open to come to, I think that's key in your career. Your network it'll continue your network will grow because people want to come to you for more information.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Okay, to our final subjects then, and I'm going to start again with Richard. So before we summarize at the end, I'm just going to come to you for fun at work, fun. Now, I was quite surprised actually that somebody like Chuck would be talking about fun at work. But on page 54, he says, when others notice you having fun at your workplace, they start to have fun too. It spreads and people want to be around you, which can lead to more advancement and more success. Again, having fun equals success. And for me personally, I actually realized that a lot of my work environments had not been fun. And that was quite a sad realization, because now I'm finding myself thinking, God damn, I've got to make sure I'm in an environment that I can have fun at work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that he included this in the book, because far too often it doesn't get talked about or mentioned, right? And one of the issues that came out of the pandemic, of course, was mental health awareness. And I think that we've seen a movement to really consider, how do we take care of people at work, and having fun is part of that. He also says on 59, remember, if you're not enjoying yourself, you won't be successful. And I think that it's pretty common and very easy in a security role, especially in a senior leadership role, to be too focused on on what's got to get done, and almost to think what you do is to take it too seriously or to take yourself too seriously. And this, we'll go back to this, to circle back to the empathy thing. I think it's important that leaders are aware of how their team is doing and how their relationship with other senior leaders is evolving. Have some fun. Invite other people into your network in the security team that are from outside the security team, for example. He talks about taking his team to the movies. That's a great idea. You can have all sorts of fun and just think outside the box. And I think it all begins again with not taking yourself too seriously and enjoying the moment. And then going back to what we said before about relationships, actually having a vested interest, a personal vested interest in the people that work with you, people that work for you, and people you work with. He emphasizes that. It comes out in this book, and it's a great opportunity that he's taken, and I'm glad he's done that because more of it needs to be done.
Yeah, I'm wondering actually, Rich, whether we've lost the ability to put fun in work, whether it's not, maybe it's frowned upon. I don't know. And I'm not talking about pranking and joking around. I'm just talking about the enjoyment. And you're so right.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to work at it. And again, this is where strategy kind of is woven throughout this as well, because you got to think about this as you're challenging or developing goals and objectives. How are we going to have some fun along the way? Take a break, get everyone together, and just have a good opportunity to blow off some steam.
Absolutely. Bringing in Adrian now. Thank you, Richard. Adrian, Chuck talks about on page 57 how basically he fired his client because he realized there was no way that there could be any fun or enjoyment within the workplace. He'd recognized it was toxic. And I thought it was great. Fired the client, went to bigger waters. And it just reminded me actually, like, if I could probably do things again differently, I think I would have done that a little bit more often. What did you pick up from that?
Oh, just first off, while we're on the topic, my 4-year-old is running around the house ringing the bell for fun. So I think it's so. So the specific topic, as you can hear, he's ringing the bell at the moment. It's running around.
Who's in control in your house, Adrian?
Yeah, that's what fun should be.
Yes.
I think what fun does, it creates longevity. I had a friend that always said, here for a good time, not for a long time. But the best lessons I've learned have been from my worst bosses. And unfortunately, in life, sometimes it's those difficult things that really create character. What I've learned, the worst people I worked for is how not to be, but that's given that pressure that I was under, or that environment stimulated growth. So you often say, iron sharpens iron. So it's one of the things I actually don't agree with Chuck in the book. Especially if you're young in your career, you don't necessarily know the culture that you're going to go into, but you shouldn't leave a challenging position that's going to empower you to grow, especially as a young professional, just because it doesn't look like it's fun. And I know that's not necessarily the intent of the message. When you're in a difficult position, you can still try and find ways to make it enjoyable. Maybe it's a different statement, but I would not also, as my advice to young people, I would not tell them, listen, don't take a challenging position where you can grow and learn, and just because you're not going to have fun, you don't need to stay there, but take on the challenges. Don't be afraid of the adventure of a challenge and something that's difficult. And if it's fun, you're going to stay. But if it's not fun, you're going to learn. But make the best of that opportunity. And that's where I differ.
Yeah. And I think also to your point, we should definitely recognize toxic work environments. And I think there's the big lesson there that staying in a toxic work environment is not going to be healthy. It's not going to make you feel good. As he says, you go home, you take it out on your family. You're not the person you should be. Ari, what did you take from the whole have fun at work piece?
Well, I love that section. It's still something that I'm learning because when I was a teenager, I was like 15, 16. I was already super into security management. And now, so it was always enjoyable. Even the boring parts about security management, like doing like budgeting, I still enjoy it. when it's related to security. But there are also times when you have clients that make even the work that should be fun and enjoyable a bit of a living hell, right? And so it was great reading this and knowing that when you drop a client like that or a boss like that, you can find something better later. It was encouraging. And it's also, and I also like the example of what they took the team to the movies, because I've also been doing that in my workshops. I show them shows like White Collar, which it has a lot of highs and cons and all that. And sometimes it's great to show something that's fiction, but to later analyze it and turn it into a useful exercise. And it's a lot more memorable and fun than it would have been otherwise.
I think it took them to see Paul Blart Mall Cop,
Yes.
didn't they? Which
Yes.
is so funny. Great stuff. Thank you for sharing, Yeri. Okay, coming over now to Farah. Farah, what did you pick up from Have Fun? Dream big, have fun, get stuff done. It's like a presidential mantra, isn't it?
I loved it. I think you and I, Yo-Yo, have kind of been drawn to one another because we are people who want joy in the things that we do,
Yeah.
right? So I understand Adrian's comments, but I also kind of think fun in this book could be substituted for the word joy. And I think you can find that in serious things as well. I would get why some people might think fun in a book about leadership and security. But I think Chuck articulates really well maintaining a mindset of fun is not only integral to our mental health, but it's also like a very practical and tactical approach to achieving our goals. I think he has this belief that creating a fun mindset begins with the conscious decision that no matter what you do, you can have fun doing it. And he kind of suggests that before accepting a new role or task, that you should consider whether it allows for an element of enjoyment. And I think that means being true to ourselves and understanding what makes a job fulfilling and enjoyable to you. After all, if you're not having fun, you're going to lose motivation. Your big dreams will fade away into little ones, or worse, you'll have no dreams at all. So I think it's important. I think he also really highlighted sort of the contagious nature of fun. So when you have this good attitude, it's going to spread to those around you. And that ripple effect of positivity can enhance your team morale. It increases productivity. You foster a positive and supportive work environment. And I think also it's really important to remember that people in general are naturally drawn to people who exhibit positivity and fun. So that leads to more opportunities as well. I think he's careful to outline that it doesn't mean shying away from challenges or avoiding difficult things, but it's about finding enjoyment in overcoming these obstacles and viewing them as opportunities for growth and learning. So yeah, I loved it.
I have to mention this because as you were talking, I was thinking back to the time that I did have a lot of fun at work, and it was in the mid-90s. I know. Can you believe that I'm even that old? And for a bit of fun, when our boss, we had I was in a sales role, and my boss left the office for a meeting, and we took her desk out to the car park and put all of her files and her phone and everything on the desk with the chair in the car park. And we were all just like absolutely rolling around the floor in laughter, just in the anticipation of our boss coming back saying, "Where's my effing desk?" And it's out of the car park. And I just look back, and that was a really funny time. But obviously, that is more on the prank side of having enjoyment. Yes, but that was a good moment. Mike, take me through where having fun, getting stuff done really kind of resonated with you.
Yeah, I think I've seen it done, the fun mindset or applying that as a leader. I've seen that done well, and I've seen it not done at all. And I think when it's not done at all, you have a toxic manager or leader. I experienced this at a previous employer. And I think what happens is people, the employees, the team members, they're not willing to kind of bring their unique self. They're not going to open up and maybe they wouldn't be open to say something in a meeting, or maybe if they see something that's wrong, they wouldn't chime up because it's just that environment isn't an open one. It's very much serious, and maybe you get in trouble if you say something wrong. So having that fun mindset, I think if you apply that as a leader, it really does help bring the best out in your team and definitely help every employee kind of bring their unique experience to that. And I saw it done really well in an environment that you wouldn't even think that you could do that, right? Before I became a corporate security manager, I was in military special operations. And in the height of the war in Iraq, I had a leader, a manager who found ways to bring the fun mindset to everything, to experiences, objectives, to missions that were looking at it from the outside. You'd say that's very serious and you have to be serious at all times. But if you are serious at all times, you're more apt to slip up or to be nervous or to not think things through. So he was really good at making sure everyone was having fun, the right opportunities to say something funny over the radio, or know when it was the time to, hey, let's take a breath and have a volleyball match or a pool party at our base. And just to get that opportunity for everyone to blow steam off and to know that, yes, this is a serious thing we're doing, but we can still have fun doing it with each other, whether it's funny nicknames that we had for each other or coming up to someone on an objective and saying something funny to catch them off guard. So I learned a lot from that particular manager on the right way to do it. And I think that's what I got from Chuck was you can have a fun mindset in pretty much any job or organization. You just have to figure out the right way to do it. And if you're not having fun, maybe you need to figure out, how do I make this? Right? What things can I do in my own daily experience, whether it's going out for a walk with the dogs or calling an old buddy to have a laugh, those types of things. I think sometimes you have to look internally as well. You can't expect your manager, your leader to make it fun. You kind of have to do it on your own.
And I think the security industry, Mike, is innately very serious. When you look at the military and you look at the police into security and consultancy, it's not an industry that you would assimilate with really having fun and joy from the outside. And we all do know how to have fun and joy. And we're all in the jobs because we absolutely truly love them. And what you've described is a really nice opportunity for connectivity amongst in the teams and individuals. But we're just going to go around the room and just summarize. Rich, tell us overall why you think people should read this book.
This book not only can be beneficial to young security professionals, or any professional for that matter, or maybe those in the mid-level, but there's a lot of things in this book that he talked about, that we've talked about, that I had not given much thought to recently. And it was a good reminder, hey, I got to start doing that again. I've forgotten how to do that. The other thing I like about this book a lot is that it's Chuck. The book is written like he talks. There are very few authors that can pull that off. Tom Brokaw has written several books. And in his books, when you read his books, it's just like listening to him on television, right? So that's another aspect about this book that's a hidden gem, a diamond in the rough, so to speak, is that as you read this, you think about if you've met Chuck if for any period of time, it's like, I can hear him saying this. I can see him saying this. And that makes it that much more pleasurable as well. So it's packed with great information, great ideas, great encouragement, but also it's very readable and very digestible. And that's the reason I'd highly recommend this book.
I just love the font size in the book. It was brilliant. It was very easy to read. Adrian, your final words.
Yeah, I think I come from a similar background as Mike. I think quite a few of us have a second career as in the security industry. And when I left the military, the advice that I was given is that if you find someone that does what you want to do, and ask them how they did it. And that's basically the contents of Chuck's book. And I think for those who are thinking about doing the transfer into the industry, or those who are young in the industry, I think the book has something for everyone, whether you have been in the industry for years or whether you're a newcomer. I think most of us have echoed that, is that there's lessons to learn, I think. And
Yeah.
I think it's, in that perspective, it's a good read.
Harry, let's come to you for your final word.
Yes. Well, I think the book was excellent. And I agree that it was also fun sized, which is always great. And I'm 26, so I'm inclined to think that it's better for young professionals, but naturally, maybe in a couple of decades, I will think it's great for all ages. I would also like to add that the Chuck's methodology is very compatible with the mindset that I apply to networking, which is called productive generosity. And it basically consists of you do something productive and good for in this case, for the security industry, but you don't necessarily expect direct reciprocity. It's not like I do this for you and you will do this exact same thing for me, but it's actually more like, okay, I will put good things out in the world and expect also good things to come back to me, but not instantly and not exactly the same way. And if I had read Jack's book like 10 years ago, I would also done it much better.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same. Thank you, Ari. Mike, what are your words?
Well, first off, I think we've mentioned it's not long. It gets to the point. And I was able to read this on a flight home from vacation yesterday to prepare for the podcast, right? And my wife was surprised that I was able to get it done, but I read it and I understood it was his story resonated with mine. It was easy to relate to. I really enjoyed his kind of how he deals with his network and how he cultivates it. The ideas around taking time out of your day to respond to your friends' posts or post your own content or find content that you can add to LinkedIn, but to be very active with it. So you can't just assume that, oh, I have a LinkedIn profile and now my network is going to flourish and everyone's going to think I'm the smartest person in the world. And the last thing that I got from it, and I think Adrian had mentioned this as well, is about security professionals, especially folks that come from military or police backgrounds. We're not necessarily set up to share publicly. We think of our profession as something that's secretive, or we don't want to share what our client does or what our biggest threats are. But I think what I learned from Chuck is that you can compartmentalize that. You can have your private, what things that I want to keep secure, but I also need to have this outwardly facing social profile that helps me with my own, not only my career, but actually help me do my job. Right. And knowing that I can go to a certain person on LinkedIn and say, hey, can you help me with this topic, or an ASIS connects, but not, you can't, I see a lot of people that I know in the security profession that just don't even have a social profile. They think it's not something that they should do. And I've seen a lot of folks in, like, especially the executive protection field, that are starting to get more public, right? They're showing maybe sometimes a little too much, but how do they do their job? What types of equipment do they use? And I think that's really, it's great because it helps other people learn, hey, I can go to this person. So that's what I got, is not being secretive about what we do as security professionals, but making sure you have a public facing social presence to help you with what you do.
And to your point about that public facing social presence, he also mentions, doesn't he, helping others and being open to being helped. And I thought that was incredibly realistic and provoking, because there's a lot of people who are a little nervous still about being helped. And there are some people that don't quite know how to help others, and it encourages good thought. Okay, to finish up, Farah, thank you, Mike. Farah, just take us through really your summary.
So I really enjoyed reading this book. And as everyone else has said, it was a really easy read, which was great. A few aspects that sort of stood out to me. First and foremost, his career trajectory was really fascinating. Sort of each phase of his professional journey kind of painted a really interesting picture of the realities of working in the security and law enforcement industries. So sort of this from his early days, and then this progression and some of the challenges he faces to his ultimate success now. I think his stories provided a really rich behind the scenes look at a world and a persona that not many people get a lot of insight into. I mean, he is obviously this larger than life person, and it shines through on every page. And I think it's infectious. He's driven, determined, resilient, not to mention he just has a clear passion for his work. So I find that it makes for really compelling reading. But obviously, despite his sort of formidable side, he doesn't really shy away from also showing he is a human. He struggled, he had vulnerabilities. And I think that kind of honesty is always really refreshing. He has some great ideas about leadership, which really resonated with me. I think his approach to personal and professional development, his focus on mental well-being, he's clearly deeply committed to, I'd say, fostering positive change within the industry. And I think his belief in the power of joy and satisfaction and fun in the workplace is a really valuable lesson. So I think, yeah, through the lens of sort of this veteran security professional, this narrative not only navigates the intricacies of the industry, but it takes you on a journey towards effective leadership. So I'd also say it's definitely a book for security professionals who are really looking to take that leap forward and carve their path within the industry.
Yeah. And I would add anyone looking to leave the military and go into security, anyone looking to go from the policing sector or law enforcement into security. We'll put the link up to the book so you can download it. Everybody, thank you so much. Really enjoyed chatting to you today. And thank you for your time and for your opinions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yo-Yo.